Welcome back to Painting with People, where I paint portraits with people that are pursuing their passions. Today, I paint with Lillia, aka your sewing bestie. She learned to sew at a young age, and now she's teaching others. This conversation was so much fun, and I cannot wait for you to hear Painting with Lillia. Oh, this is a cute little picture. I'm excited.
I've been told I'm very photogenic.
You are very photogenic. Okay, so Lillia.
Hi.
Where are you from?
I am originally from Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, which is, if you know Michigan, there's the hand and then there's the banana.
Uh-huh.
And then I am the very tip of the banana that's connected to the Canadian border.
Oh my
So that's where I was born. But my parents like to say they got me to Texas as fast as possible. And so I've been here since I was, four or five.
Okay.
So yeah, so we moved.
Pretty much grew up here.
Pretty much grew up here, yeah. But I do really I like that area of the U.S. It's gorgeous. So there's a place there called Mackinac Island, and you can only drive like horse and buggy, scooters, bicycles, walk. It's so fun. Like the island's very tiny. You get to it by ferry, but it's just like a really pretty, like just nature-y place. And so I like to think like that's where I get, my nature-y side is because I was born there.
I was about to say, I can kind of pick up on the heart for maybe the environment.
Yes.
That is so cool. So do you consider yourself a Texan?
I do consider myself a Texan, partially because when I was born, this was allowed in the 90s, they don't do this anymore. My grandparents drove up with a bag of dirt from Texas. They put it in one of those like big pink basins at the hospital. So the first soil I would touch would be Texas soil. Like I was like fresh, like less than 24 hours old, and they just went with my feet in the dirt. So again, nature roots.
Oh my God.
Since the day I was born, I've had my feet in dirt.
That is so funny.
They don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
They don't let you do that anymore. No.
I don't feel like that's really it's probably frowned upon.
Yeah, just a wee bit. Yeah. So it's, and then I also grew up on a farm. So my grandparents live about an hour and a half away from here. And so I spent a lot of my days, like a lot of summers just at the farm, running around chasing chickens and just living the life of a little Texan girl, riding bareback, just going wild.
Oh my gosh. So what's your favorite farm animal?
I am obsessed with cows. So much so, I did a photo shoot with a baby cow named Hank a few years ago with a friend. It was one of those mini sessions, and it was supposed to be for like newborn babies,
like little kids,
little kids. Yeah. And me and my friend show up like in white little frock dresses, very cottagecore.
I'm ready to cuddle this cow.
She was like, "Oh, it's y'all," and we're like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Oh, let's go." So
you grew up on a farm,
partially on a farm, yeah. So that was lots of summers chasing fireflies, and that's actually how I got my nickname from my grandpa, was by like being on the farm and all this stuff. He gave me the nickname when I was a kiddo, Ladybug, because I used to chase all the ladybugs in the yard. Yeah. And so whenever I got married, my husband is, one of the only guys other than like my immediate family who's like been allowed to call me Ladybug. So it's, it's one of those like super special like childhood memories and like fun times, and yeah.
Oh, that is so sweet. So special. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. So what else were you interested in when you were little?
Sewing.
Really?
Sewing, right? Really. Could have never known. Never known.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. But so I learned how to sew from my grandma. So, you know, those, and my grandma and my Nana taught me how to sew. And I'm really lucky to have both of them still in my life. And so, you know, whenever I have a question or need anything, I'm able to kind of go,
help. Help me, please.
But it's funny because I made my first quilt last summer, and that was kind of the first time, like, in a while I had asked my grandma for help, and she was like, Lillia, like, what do you mean you don't know how to quilt? You know, you can knock things off from a photo. You can't quilt. I'm like, well.
How about that?
So, you know.
It's different. Quilter.
It's math.
Massive.
It's the math. And I am not a mather.
I am not a math person.
Yeah.
There's a reason I took art classes.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
I'm like, there's a reason I'm in. But what's funny is, like, I am a technical designer, so I, like, work in math a lot. And
it's so funny.
It, you know.
Like, full circle.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, okay. So, but yeah, so I started sewing when I was 4 with both my grandmas, and it was kind of just one of those things where it was like, I saw them doing it, and you know, like, I kind of
do it.
Yeah, I wanted to do it, and kind of mentioned, like, whenever we were talking beforehand about the Easter dresses, and so, like, we would get Easter dresses, and we would get little things here and there from them, and it was so much fun, and I loved it, and I really I wanted to be a part of that, and I wanted to do it. And so one day I just kind of asked my grandma, I was like, can you teach me how to sew? And she was like, well, what do you want to sew? And I was like, I don't know. What you got? And so I got to dig through this trunk that I actually now own. Like, I have it in my possession now, which is really fun. And I picked out this really, like, hideous M&M flannel fabric. And we made this tube top thing and a tube top skirt, and that was the first thing I ever sewed.
Look at that.
So yeah, it was lots of fun.
I love that that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah, and I didn't always want to do that. I actually originally wanted to be, so in high school, it was kind of like one of those, I was like, I want to do everything and anything that I can.
I feel this.
And,
I feel that.
And so I originally wanted to be a band director. And because I played a bunch of instruments in school.
Okay.
So I played clarinet, saxophone, euphonium, I marched drum corps, and I just was very musically inclined, and I loved music and everything that, like, music stood for. We have a lot of, like, singers in our family, and so, you know, it just kind of made sense that, like, that would be what I also liked doing at the same time. So, you know, but I feel like most girls kind of get bullied to some degree when you're in high school, you know, and so I was bullied a lot, and so then I was like, okay, well, like, let me go to the theater kids, because the theater kids understand me, and we're all the, you know, the outcasts or the weirdos, right? And, you know, we like Broadway and this and that, and so
there's a lot of acceptance, it's a safe space.
And so that's really kind of where I fell back in love with sewing again, was in that kind of realm of, like, kind of like losing myself / like finding yourself again. And, you know, in high school it's such a pivotal time in your life where, you know, you're really kind of figuring out who you are. You know, you're developing those fundamental skills of, like, being with people you may not like. And, you know, what do you like? What don't you like?
So when you graduated high school, did you know that you were wanting to go into fashion and sewing?
Yeah. So while I was in high school, my senior year, you know, I really didn't know where I wanted to go to college. I had thought about going to, like, a smaller liberal arts school and doing teaching or music or, you know, really general studies, or at the time I was really interested in like foreign affairs. And so I was looking at schools that had a international studies program, and I was going to go, you know, be a liaison and like learn a bunch of languages. And,
I had that dream.
Yes. And so, you know, and at the time I spoke German pretty fluently. And So, and I'm very rusty. I can still speak it. I can still hold a very decent conversation.
Okay, that's amazing.
Very much still like, okay, not as fluent as I was.
Right.
So yeah, but then we had a family friend who helped at the high school in the theater department, and she was like, you know, we were talking, she was asking me like what I wanted to do, and I was like, oh, you know, I'm going to go do this or maybe that, and like looks me dead in the eye and goes, no, you're not. And I'm like, what do you mean no? Like, who do you think you are? And she goes, no, you have this like God-given talent to sew and to create things. So why would you not go to school to create things? And like, we're just like in the theater closet, and she's just telling me this. And I'm like, you're right. So that moment, that night, I went home after rehearsal and I started looking at like fashion schools.
Yeah.
And that was so senior year had started, and that was about like November before Thanksgiving break.
Okay.
So at this point, most people already had like acceptance letters, knew where they're going. Yeah. Meanwhile, I can't get a college to accept me for the life of me.
Yeah.
And I'm a horrible test taker. I had super low SAT, ACT scores. Like, I feel like most creative people can
didn't even take them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like most creatives can like relate to that in like, it's just not our wheelhouse. Like, I am not called to be a test taker.
Yeah, testing is not my thing.
Me and testing do not get along. So like, I had been trying really hard. All of these schools were like, your scores are too low. Even though I was like an IB student and I was making pretty decent grades in school, they were still like, no, you can't, like, we're not going to accept you. So I quite literally had to go plead my case to TWU, which is where I ended up going.
Okay.
And I was in the like admissions office, you know, I was meeting with the admissions board, and I was talking with them, and they were asking me questions, you know, and they, at the end of all of it, you know, they were like, thank you so much for coming, you know, you'll hear from us soon. And I was like, great, you know, wonderful, awesome. And I wrote all of them thank you notes. And this is the power of a thank you note. So I wrote a thank you note, hand delivered it to them, thanked every single one of them. And the last lady who I gave it to, she was like, I've never received a thank you note from someone I've met with. I was like, what? What do you mean you've never received, like, you took time out of your day to meet with somebody who you don't even think is going to be able to be accepted in your school. And you're telling me you never received a thank you note. And she's like, no. So 2 weeks later, I got an acceptance letter.
Oh my goodness. That is so amazing.
Like, I tell people all the time, I'm like, you don't even understand how much a thank you note, like what a thank you note will do to like whether it's like an employer or whether it's like a friend or even like wedding gifts. Like the amount of people who aren't writing thank yous for wedding gifts anymore or like baby shower gifts. I'm like, yo, come on.
That's right. You did mention before we started that you like postcards.
I love postcards. Yes. That's like my fun hobby is postcarding. So, you know, it kind of fits with the traveling around the world still, and like, you know, because traveling as an adult is much more expensive than when your parents are paying for it.
Just a little bit.
And so I wrote a thank you note and I got in. And my first semester I was on academic probation because they really thought like, okay, this girl is like not even going to pass the first semester.
Oh, no.
And my first semester, I made a 4.0. The Honors College reached out and was like, we would like to have you in our college. Here's a scholarship to join the Honors College. And so throughout college, I ended up doing really well. And like, I thrived in that environment because that was what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, especially like high schoolers, I'm like, you know, it's okay if you're not doing good in school. Like, it's okay if you're a C high school student or even a B, because when you get to college, you're going to be able to do the things that you want to do and do something that like drives you and makes you happy. And at the end of the day, that is going to make you feel so much better than calculus.
Yes.
So,
I'm a C's, get degrees.
Oh.
Through and through.
That was me in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. I very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that was how I got accepted into college. And then what was even funnier is whenever I graduated, the chancellor actually at graduation had me stand up and like told my story about college and like how I got in and then like getting in the honors program. And I told my mom, I was like, Mom, you're going to want to be recording because she's going to talk about me. And she's like, well, yeah, she's going to say your name as you cross the stage. I was like, no. Like,
she's going to talk.
Like there's a whole like 3-minute portion of graduation dedicated to telling the story of me. And so whenever, you know, the chancellor stood up and like was doing her stuff and then announced my name, and I stood up and told the story, and then I had gotten engaged on a honors trip, and so that was like a big part of it too. And my mom apparently just sat there with her mouth like on the floor, and my now husband was recording it, and my mom was like, I didn't understand that that's what she meant. And he was like, yeah, that's what she meant.
That is amazing.
So
what a great story of just going out there and getting it. Doing it.
Just chase your dreams. Just do what
your
you want to do, you know?
I love that.
Yeah, do what you want to do what you love, because really I think at the end of the day, like life's too short to not do what you love.
Yeah. You know, there's a sound, I don't know if it's trending right now, but I did hear some audio on Instagram because I am not on TikTok, so I see things a little bit later.
A little later,
you know?
yeah. It's fine.
And it's, you know, they say do what you love and you never have to work a day in your life. But I think it's actually, if you do what you love, you work harder.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can tell you straight up, like I work harder now than I ever did in my corporate fashion job. Like,
yeah,
I know it's probably what they don't want to hear, but you know, it's so different working for yourself than it is working for another person or a company.
It's the whole, when you become an entrepreneur, you quit your 9-to-5 to work 24/7.
So to work, amen. Especially like I've changed paths a lot as an entrepreneur. Like I started off blogging about fashion, and then I was like, oh, fashion isn't where it's at because everyone and their mother is a fashion blogger here in this area. And so then I did local, and then after local, like I started doing sewing sustainability, and then I did sustainability and sewing, and now I'm just straight sewing. And man, sewing has been the best.
I love that. Okay, so you did fashion design in college.
Yeah, I did fashion design.
You graduated with a bachelor's?
Yes,
in fashion
bachelor
design.
in fashion, yeah. And I am currently working on a master's portfolio to go back to school so I can actually teach at the collegiate level.
Okay.
So.
All right, and so you went to Texas Women's University.
Yeah.
And then when did you start the blogging?
So I started blogging while I was in school in 2016.
Okay.
So 2016 or 2017. I'm trying to think when I did my internship, because I literally started it in my internship. And because I had to drive to Decatur every day. Oh my God. And I was like, on those drives, you know, I'd call my friend and we would chit chat. And that was kind of when the rise of the influencer was happening. And everyone and their mother was like, either influencers are super cool and I want to be one, or influencers are going to ruin society and be the downfall of marketing and this, that, and the other. And like everything under the sun, like I heard it.
Yeah.
And, that was kind of when I was like, you know what? I really like this fashion thing. And I had a friend at the time who was a blogger. And I was like, I think I could do that.
Okay.
And so that's when the D Diaries was born. That's when my first blog was born, was during that time. And I decided that this one day I'm going to try and make this my full-time thing. Like I still at the time I still wanted to do corporate fashion. I still wanted to be a tech designer. I wanted to learn all that I could about, fashion still, but in a much more, in a different light, because marketing, social media at the time was like bumping, and it still is bumping.
Yeah.
And so that was for me like my first introduction into the influencing world.
Okay.
And building a website on your own and all that stuff that comes with being a influencer.
Entrepreneur, anything.
Really. Like, can you
if
build
you
a
want to
website?
have a business,
Yeah.
Wow.
For sure. But yeah, it was super fun. And I learned a lot that summer. I learned a lot about the industry because I worked at a small business doing technical design work. So I learned a lot about like shipping and manufacturing and tech packs. And that helped me ultimately like land my first corporate job.
Okay.
And I loved it. I was a tech designer for a men's clothing company here in DFW. And fashion is very interesting. The whole like world of fashion and manufacturing and shipping, and there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that a lot of people like don't realize goes on behind the scenes. So like one of it being like shipping dates and manufacturing and like ordering samples and everything, the whole development process to bring a design to life. That's why when I see companies like Shein and they have like 1,000,005, literally 1,000,000 SKUs, I'm like, how, like what, like, and it's no wonder that companies are feeling like they're left out of the race because
they can't compete with that.
You can't compete with that, especially like the only way to compete with that is to literally like steal designs.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's what they're doing.
I mean, it is what they're doing. Yeah, exactly. Like, but even even the bigger companies, they'll do trips to overseas, in Europe and, oh, what's trending over here? How can we bring this to our American clients?
Yeah.
And, and like I think it's okay to get inspiration from overseas and, from other cultures and other people and other designers, but there's a very fine line of inspiration and copying.
Yeah.
So
what's that one book? How to Steal Like an Artist?
Yes.
Oh, what a great book.
Yeah.
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 There's a very big difference.
Yeah.
Between copying and
copying and there's not many laws that actually protect protect clothing designers, I should say, because there's no there's minimal fashion copyright laws.
Yeah, how do you copyright?
So for sewing patterns, you can't copyright a sewing pattern. You can copyright the instructions, but you can't actually copyright the pattern
really
itself.
That's kind of shocking.
It's very interesting because you're kind of like, I feel like we should be able to.
I feel like you should be able to
copyright
creative
that
licensing.
Yeah, and some of the feedback is like, oh well, there's not an original design anymore, and I'm like, there's still some originality in things.
Yeah,
you just gotta.
But then how do you watch it? How do you
exactly, all of that, like
monitor that? I think that's the word I was looking for.
It's and I don't have the answers. Like I wish I did.
Yeah.
Like it's just so as a creative, that thought has definitely crossed my mind, and especially as like stuff has been taken from me and like claimed to be original by other companies, and it's like,
is it though.
You know, and you know, the legal advice I've been given is like, okay, well, you know, like if you have a case, like, and if you're a solopreneur, the catch is like copyright law is a federal case, so you have to go through the federal courts, which is like years long, and it's a long process. It's an expensive process, and depending on like who you're fighting against, like they could just sue you right back, and it could be a whole
just not worth it.
Just not worth it. Yeah. So, you know, the legal advice I've been given is like, you know, unless you have a secret investor that I don't know about, you know, like it's potentially not worth the time and
money,
which stinks because, you know, you're like, I've spent hours creating this and, you know, like literally like birthing it.
Yeah.
And just to have it so easily like gone.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like I've seen a lot of fashion designers say that, like, call out like a Shein and be like, they sold, or even like big designers.
Oh yeah.
Like big fashion houses and stuff.
Yeah. And it's a never ending game of who's the fastest, who's the, you know, how are you know, if your stuff is original, can you copyright it? How fast can you copyright it? If you can't copyright it, you say a prayer.
Right.
And you just kind of go from there.
Man.
Yeah.
I mean, in the photography and art world, it's all very similar.
Yeah.
Now there's the whole AI thing.
Oh, yes.
A whole nother topic, but
yeah. No, well, so like I am both excited and terrified of AI.
Yep.
Like I use it for helping create like content calendars, or like if I'm really stumped on a design, I'll like social media wise, I'll be like, okay, what is a good like, I'll type in like, what's a good social media calendar idea for a person who sews and is in DIY? Ask me the following 7 questions and create a calendar for me. Like I use it like that. It's just the way it's growing in like the best and worst ways, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So you're teaching sewing classes now.
I am.
You went from blogging
to teaching.
I love that.
Yeah. It is so much fun. And it's a lot of fun seeing people get it. Like who have never, like they'll come in and they'll be like, I've never sewn before. I'm really nervous. Like, I don't know how this is going to go for me, you know? And I always try and like start off the class with like, just remember this is fun. You know, you're learning this for you. You're not learning it, you know, or maybe if you are, you know, like this is still like a new skill for you. So, you know, don't stress yourself out too much.
Yeah. Just like with anything, you're learning something new. It's going to take time.
Yeah. It's going to take time. And, you know, but then by the end of class, when people are like, whenever they get it in class, it's just like the most rewarding feeling of like, oh yeah, you got it. Like
I love that.
So much fun. And yeah. And sewing classes are, you know, that's something like like my mom jokes with me because she's like, oh, all my kids are becoming teachers. Because she's a teacher and she really wanted me to be a teacher of some sort. But I was very much like, no, I'm going to go in the fashion industry.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a teacher. And the first semester they asked me to like come in and help. I was like, sure, whatever. You know, like it'll just be one class. It's one day a week. Like I got time for that. And then, you know, it's one of those things where it's like you don't expect to fall in love with it until you do. And then you really just kind of, you know, for me, I made that my entire personality. And I have had so much fun just getting to teach people, you know, both in the college and in school. And just, it's been so much fun. It's been so rewarding too. It is not for the faint of heart, let me tell you. Yeah, there's been a few times where I'm like, are you really trying to have this conversation with me? Like students just, you know, being combative or this and that. And you know, you kind of have to like take a step back and be like, okay, where are they coming from? Like, why are they, you know, what's going on? Like, is there something going on in their lives? Is there something going on in your life that's making you respond this way? So, you know, for me, it's been a learning experience of, you know, relational, and especially coming out of COVID where, you know, we had almost a year to 2 years where we really weren't connecting with people. So it's that connection with people again. And I am very, very extroverted. And so for me, like that was a really hard time. So being able to teach and sew and build connections with people has been really, really good for me. All over again. So.
So have you applied to your master's?
So I have a program that I found that I am going to apply to. It's going to be an online program. And so that way I can still teach here in the city and teach at TWU. And, you know, that's really where my heart is for teaching. And, you know, they're the ones that kind of inspired me to like go get my master's. So that's, you know, where I want to be when it's all said and done. But, so I'm hopefully going to be able to apply here like at the end of summer in fall I know, I'm both so nervous and so excited. And it's so nerve because I haven't built like an actual portfolio in so long, like since college. And so building out a whole other portfolio that like has a theme and has an inspiration.
Oh my gosh,
You know, you kind of have to.
It's a lot.
And so, you know, I've been trying to do like little by little, a little bit every day. And, you know, for me with the whole like community and social media side of things, I'm hoping that whenever I'm done with these patterns, I can actually like release them to sell. And have other people just like get to sew and get to experience, you know, the art themselves.
I love that.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's slowly but surely coming together. Like I have the first 3 outfits and like designs designed, and I just have to pattern them and like get them digitized and get them in the software so that way I can start actually sewing them and making all of the samples. But my husband's in finance, and whenever I told him like, hey, I'm thinking about going back to school, he was like, okay, money, one. I was like, yeah. And he's like, scholarships? And I was like, that would
be great.
That would be obviously the ideal.
Not opposed.
Not opposed at all. And so I've been doing a lot of research on like master scholarships, which actually there's quite a few out there.
Oh, that's great.
So it's been, you know, it's been nice to like see that and then experience that and like, okay, this is, you know, what I'm thinking. This is what I want to do. This is like how much it would cost and all that stuff. And then if I get the scholarship, this is what it would look like with that scholarship. So yeah, so it's been a very like positive experience so far. I just am, you know, as everyone is who goes into a master's program or like a doctorate program, like the application process, I am terrified, you know, because it's like, okay, I'm like re-putting my work out there for all of these people to look at. And, you know, it's so different than just posting videos on the internet. Like, this is like, okay, these are industry professionals now grading my work, not just my followers who
may or may not know things. Like there's a little bit more of a relational grace.
There's like, oh, you messed up. It's okay, but we all mess up. Whereas like these professors will be like,
you messed that up.
Like what even?
And you want to come to our program.
What are you doing? But the program I'm looking at, it's out of Iowa State, and there's a lot of good things that have come out of that program. And some of our faculty got their doctorates from that program
cool.
or are looking to get their doctorates from that program. So that, obviously helps in okay, where should I apply?
You've mentioned a lot about the 3D printing.
Yes!
Which I think is so cool.
Yes.
I love the thought of 3D printing fashion.
Yes.
I've seen some companies have started the shoes, the sneakers,
Adidas, yeah. So when I was in undergrad, I was really into experimental mass production techniques, and I was really kind of taken when I discovered the possible sustainable manufacturing opportunities with 3D printing, because I'm not sure how familiar you are with how polyester is made. Polyester is and recycled polyester as well. There are a few fibers that are actually made with the strewn method. So strewing is exactly how filament is made. So you melt everything down and it gets pushed through a tube and a little nozzle, and then it gets made into a single filament thread like polyester.
Oh.
So that's essentially how 3D printing.
Basically 3D printing.
That's basically the equivalent to 3D printing. So I was super fascinated with the potential of how can this be a sustainable manufacturing technique with the rise and popularity of, recycling your fashion goods and recycling fibers and clothing and all of this stuff. And so I started doing some research, and then I started kind of figuring out, okay, well, the technology's not there yet, but it could be one day. So if it is, what does that look like on a smaller scale for an indie designer, stuff like that. So I used a method called Drew loop flowers. I made little Drew loop flowers, which are basically, they're 3D printed upside down because the machine has to go out and in, and it makes these little mum looking flowers.
Okay.
That I attach to some magnets, and then the idea would be that the customer can purchase these magnets and purchase the clothing items, and it would be completely customizable.
Oh, cool.
So that was kind of the idea behind it. And, whenever you make something, you're like, oh, I really want it to come out a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't come out as great as I thought it would.
That.
Yeah, partially because just technology and, this, that, and the other thing. But now there are so many places that are investing in 3D printing.
Yeah.
And specifically 3D printing fashion. And there's already things like 3D knitting, which is essentially seamless knitting. So if you own any seamless garments, those are 3D knitted.
Oh.
And so that technology is already actively being used in the industry.
So cool.
So, but yeah, I have always loved 3D printing. I think it is absolutely another technique that we can use to manufacture clothes one day, or just, get people interested in fashion from a different industry.
Yeah. That is so cool.
So yeah. So nowadays I just, I dream about 3D printing clothes by watching other people 3D print their clothes. And that is a technique I would definitely love to explore, in a master's program, and see, what are now, compare my research from 2018 to now, because technology
so fast.
There's already so many more types of filaments out there that are fashion friendly than when I was doing my research in undergrad.
Yeah. Wow.
So hopefully one day I will be able to get that done.
That would be so cool.
Yes.
I'm really excited for the future of fashion and sustainability. How cool would it be to 3D print clothes that perfectly fit, you know?
Yeah. Which that was my whole thing for going into tech design, was clothes that fit and fitting clothes. So, cause I I've always been like fluctuating in size, and
Aren't
I
we
feel
all?
like most women do. So so when I was like growing up, fashion was always intriguing to me because
Fashion was the worst.
because I was either like struggling to find jeans, or I'd find jeans and they'd be like so expensive, or like my
Yes.
friends would have the hottest new styles and like I didn't, or it could have been like a
Yeah.
million and five things. And so like when I got to college and I started like learning more about the industry and like how sizing works and what sizing is, and I really loved pattern making. Like that's one of my favorite things is pattern making. That's when I found tech design and sizing and like the importance of the tech designers in the industry. So, most companies, if there's a sizing issue, it's the tech designers that have caused the sizing issue, or who have like it's a grading issue, or it's a manufacturing issue, or like it wasn't tested enough. So it could be a lot of things, but I was really inspired because I've always struggled with like the shape of my body and fitting clothes.
Yeah.
So when I was in college and I was like designing things and like speccing it out, that was a huge thing for me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Oh man. I was just like, even in Target,
yeah.
when you walk in,
Yeah.
like I am a different size in every single different line.
Yes. So
And it's so frustrating.
yeah. So, it could be because like like there's things called like private labels, which are just like, that's like exclusive to Target or exclusive to that brand. And then there's things like, where you may like vanity sizing, or like it's like a different size chart, or and then there's brands like TJ Maxx where it's like, okay, this is like all of the leftover stuff that like literally didn't fit, or like meet standards.
There's no telling.
There's no telling what you're gonna get with that one. Where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
let's just try. Let's try again. So
Yeah. It can be really disheartening sometimes to go shopping. You're like,
yeah.
nothing fits.
Yeah. Which a lot of the students who I see, like that's their top comment is, like they may not want to learn how to sew to make their own clothes, but they may just want to learn how to sew just to alter their clothes, or, they really like vintage stuff, but vintage stuff, comes with a risk of it might have holes. It might have a sizing issue. It might have this, that, the other. And so, you kind of just like figure it out, but yeah, a lot of my students, that's their main goal is just to be able to alter their clothes.
Yeah. I'd love to. Personally, I would love to learn. And one of these days, if I ever have time, I will be joining one of your classes.
Yes. My biggest advice, like for anybody who wants to sew, is just go on Facebook Marketplace, find a machine, and then just 10 minutes a day. Like 10 minutes a day will really go a long way. It's kind of like painting. It's kind of like art. You just practice. Practice makes perfect.
Just like with anything.
Yeah. And my most recent, one of my most recent projects I did was I knocked off a Fendi dress, and
Fun.
I had so much fun doing it, but it pushed me to the absolute limit of my skill set because I hadn't patterned in so long, and the pattern itself was huge. Like it was the pattern when it was done, it was I think 108 inches wide. Like it was just massive. And all of that pleated into the front and both of the sleeves and into the neckline. Oh my gosh. And like when I finished the pattern, I like took a step back and I just like breathed it in because I was like, I just did that.
You're like, wow.
And but then what was funny is while I was also doing this, one of the professors I work with, she was intrigued and she goes, I haven't been challenged with a pattern either, so I'm going to knock it off too. So while I was doing this, we were like comparing notes and comparing like what we were doing, which was so much fun.
I love this.
And
I love this so much.
Just, and that's really like another thing I love about sewing is just like the community that comes along with it, and that comes along with learning and understanding, and it's such a welcoming community. And I really hope that here in Dutton, you know, that's one thing I want to do with my sewing school is be a community center for sewing of all ages, all skill levels. Even if you've never sewn a day in your life and you're like, I might sew, like, come on down, I got you. Let's go.
Yes. This is so great. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, that's really good. I like that. Thanks. I tried really hard.
Oh my god.
I tried really hard.
You did fantastic.
Thanks. You did good too.
Thank you. Do you feel like you can see yourself?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
No, I love it.